Good evening, televiewers. Welcome to Prime on My Media Prime, an edition that is going to be looking at our intellectuals in Cameroon, asking the question as to how well they have moved the nation forward. We're going to be looking at intellectuals from the scientific, artistic, agricultural, and a whole lot of perspectives. Have they done well for the nation? Can we see Cameroon today and say we are doing so well because of the intellectuals we have? Can our respective communities say that they now behave better, they now have better services, are they better organized because of the intellectuals that have been produced from the respective communities in Cameroon? If yes, then we are going to be looking at how to get them do even better. If no, we're going to also ask the reasons for the dismal impartation or contribution of these intellectuals to the growth of our nation and communities. We are discussing this very important topic with panelists who are with me already in the house. Apostle Ambe Valentine is our permanent consultant here. We're glad to have you, Apostle.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. It's always a privilege to be here. Good evening, my co-panelists, Dr. Ndimacho, Dr. Richard Munang. Good evening, Cameroonians. And this is a very sensitive topic. I pray God will help us educate you properly on the role of intellectuals in the growth of our economy.
Thank you too for coming, Apostle Ambe. We're also glad to have you, Dr. Michael Ndimacho, a lecturer with some universities. Himself is an intellectual. He's going to be telling us how they have worked so well to move our nation forward. Thank you for coming.
Thanks so much, Mr. Leo. It's a pleasure to be here, and warm greetings to the Leonard Apostle Ambe and to Dr. Richard, of course. I know he always has a lot of revealing thoughts about our subject matters of the nature, and to all the Africans, not to talk about all the peoples of the world who have made my Media Prime their own closest friend that they glue to, especially my Media Prime debates in the evening. And I would like to say that Cameroonians, of course, we are hardworking people. Be you an educated or an uneducated person, we are all called to be servants and to serve our nations selflessly. Thank you so much for inviting me.
We also are in the company of Dr. Richard Munang, who is a regular panelist on Prime R, though he has not been around for some time now because of his very tight schedule. No need presenting him. We are glad to have you, Doctor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Leo, and to Apostle Ambe and Dr. Ndimacho. It's a great pleasure to be back again, and as the panelists have rightly said earlier, I mean, this is a very important subject, I think not only for Cameroon, but for the entire continent and the world, and I look forward to engaging, and definitely we will touch the nerve today. Thank you.
Apostle Ambe Valentine when we talk of African intellectuals and you look at our communities, what comes to our minds? We had a perception about intellectuals in the 90s, in the 80s, 90s. How do you as a person and your community view an intellectual in Cameroon today?
Mr. Leo, thank you for this very important question. To begin with, we cannot downplay the role of intellectuals in our society. We can't minimize what they have contributed so far. I think in terms of transferring knowledge from an individual to another, the intellectuals of our country and Africa as a whole, they have tried their best. Most of us today, we are able to express ourselves because some intellectuals took upon themselves the responsibility to educate the masses. I think we don't have a challenge in the transference of knowledge when intellectuals are concerned. The challenge we have is the application of knowledge by our intellectuals. And a society that grows men that transfer knowledge rather than imparting knowledge, such a society can never grow. That's the reason why the growth factor is not felt in Africa, in the nation Cameroon, because we have more of persons who transfer knowledge than those who apply knowledge. It's said that knowledge is the acquisition of information, while wisdom is the application of information. Now, we have a knowledgeable society, but not a wise society. Most of our intellectuals are knowledgeable, that is the capacity to acquire information and to transfer information, but they are not wise enough to apply the information. That's why the impact is not felt. And I think most of us who are intellectuals are supposed to gather knowledge to apply, not just to transfer or not just to explain. In the advanced world, knowledge is gotten to for application, but in the context of Africa, knowledge is gotten for information and for explanation. You can explain all for what I care, but it's what you apply that transforms the society. So the reason why we are not feeling the impact of our intellectuals in Africa and in Cameroon as particular is because our intellectuals have a wealth of knowledge they have gathered just to transfer to the next generation, but they are not applying that knowledge. For instance, somebody studies agriculture, all he turns out to do is to lecture agriculture. But truly, you are not studying agriculture to lecture agriculture. You're studying agriculture to apply agriculture. The agronomists in our country, the PhD holders, are supposed to have the best farms, the best piggeries, the best cattle ranch, and the best of agricultural produce in the society. It goes to medical doctors, pharmacists. Unfortunately, our pharmacists are called to distribute drugs. Our pharmacists are trained to prescribe drugs. Pharmacists are not trained to prescribe drugs. Pharmacists are trained to produce drugs. So the failure with the intellectual is that we acquire knowledge, but the application of that knowledge is the challenge. And the actual concept of knowledge is for application. How can somebody call a pharmacist? He cannot produce paracetamol, he cannot produce codeine, and all he does is to prescribe. So all our pharmacists have been distributors of drugs produced by other pharmacists. And we call those pharmacists pharmaceutical companies. How can pharmacists in Europe be producing drugs while our own pharmacists are here to prescribe those drugs? So the challenge we have here is not the absence of intellectual or those who have knowledge, but the application of that knowledge. That's why knowledge only gathers information, but wisdom applies information.
Wisdom applies information. What is the notion people have of you and your colleagues, Dr. Ndimacho? They're talking about the intellectuals. When you go around, you are called doctors, professors. When there are occasions, you guys are the ones occupying the biggest seats now. Very honorable.
Yeah, but I think that those who think that they should honor some of us who are doctors, it is from the ignorance position.
Okay.
Because there is a saying that the more learned you become, the more humble you should be. That is how it is. And when they say the more humble you should be, humility comes with service. And therefore, you must be serviceable to the society. And that is why you find that those who have gone study so far, usually they are so down to earth. And what actually keeps them going and make their name is a service to the society. But then sometimes I would like us to get to the topic of actually who is an intellectual, because it is also a topic of education to the people in the community. Who is an intellectual? And we have to deal with this topic in context, because to say generally that this person is an intellectual sometimes is usually very tricky. Because from the humanist point of view, everybody is an intellectual. From the humanist point of view, everybody is an intellectual. But then there is another category of intellectual. Now, getting more specific, we call them the Marxian intellectuals. And we know when we talk about the Marx, we are talking about a person like Karl Marx, who came out with the theory of production between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. So, and here we are talking about those who do the production. We call them the Marxian intellectuals, because you cannot produce when you don't have the knowledge to do that. But I would like to concentrate more on the second category of intellectual, which deals with the intelligentsia. And I know now this is where you are referring to me here. It deals with the intelligentsia, and intelligentsia deals with what? With education. It deals with education, institutionally and didactically educated person, you know, the person who has formally gone to school and gotten formal training. And when we talk about autodidact here, I'm also talking about those who have done self-training. The other day, I watched a very brilliant program here. You work with a gentleman who has not even gone to school, but who was able to produce a lot of things for the community. That's autodidact. He did self-training, and he is able to reach where he is. So here, with with intelligentsia, we are looking at writers, we are looking at scientists, we are looking at economics, we are looking at musicians, we are even looking at clergymen, because it falls under the group of intelligentsia. And these have expert knowledge. They have expert knowledge and exceptional capacity, and are critically reflective. So these people who have gone to school, they've gathered the knowledge, and so they are supposed to take over reflection of society in their different domains, in their respective domains. So these are the people that we refer to, and I'm sure this is the crux, or this is actually what we are discussing this evening. We are discussing the intelligentsia, and what are they offering to the society. And I think that their ideas, the ideas of intelligentsia should induce change. It is supposed to induce change in our society. So their capacity, what they have learned in school, they don't learn to keep. They learn in order to share, in order to serve the community. Nobody go to school to come and keep the knowledge within himself. So usually I say that there is no successful person without a successor, because if you learn and you go to school, you are a celebrated person. You go to school, you come back, and you put their services to the society, and there is no continuity of that service, means that you have failed even as an educated person. And therefore we actually all have to put all of these things in context. And I want to give an example of how selfless somebody has worked, like we're talking about in the context of Africa. I want to look at Kenneth David Kaunda of Zambia, who actually ruled Zambia for 24 years. But when he left power after 24 years, he had $8,000 in his account. I mean, this is unheard of in the African context, that a president rules, and when he leaves power, I mean, he is audited and he has just $8,000 in the account. I mean, this is like chicken change for some of us, for some politicians in the African milieu. So you see that this is an intelligent person. He has gone to school, and he knows that the services, what he has learned in school, is to serve the community selflessly and not to enrich himself. And we can put up the list of most of these people. You know Julius Nyerere of Tanzania, who also came out, and even the Catholics have been vying that they have to make him a saint, because that president, the first president of Tanzania, who left a very big mark in Tanzania. And I think that these are the kinds of people we talk about, intellectuals. We don't talk about intellectuals by people who I mean, Bible, or I mean, who dictionaries and go around the place and speak big grammar, blow up grammars for people to hear. Intelligent people are people who are selfless. I call them pelicans. Those people who can wound themselves to feed their young. If you are in economics, you'll be able to devise and advise the country, I mean, work in such a way that you can be able to predict and tell the government or tell your community. And sometimes we only think about intellectuals in terms of those who are working in government. Or sometimes there are two words, intellectuals and elite. These two words are conflict. And people, when you say an intellectual or an elite, they think that you are somebody who is very, very high there. And they think that these are people who live in a town setting. Now, how can they deal all of these people? You've gone to school. At least going to school means that you at least have the basic knowledge of making a society better. And how do you make a society better? If you clean the frontage of your house, and my neighbor, Apostle Ambe, cleans the front of his house, and Dr. Richard cleans the front of his house, you are giving back to the society. If you solve a problem within your household, another person who has gone to school solves a problem in his household, you are bringing in development. You don't think that you can only bring development when you are appointed, because even appointment in Cameroon, appointment in Africa is like winning a lottery, because when you are appointed, it is as if you have been given a license to be able to take bribery, to corrupt, I mean, and you go free. So I think that people should understand that, and that's why you find that most people who go to school think that they have to go into the public service, because they get to the public service, they are waiting for appointment. To be appointed, when they are appointed, now they are able to have their own fair share. That is not the issue. Intellectuals are supposed to solve a problem. And when you go to school, you are going to school to solve a problem in the society. If you are not able to solve any problem in society, I memean, you have, like someone has done agriculture, and you have a common problem of food insufficiency in your local area. Yeah, people produce maize, and you know that this is maize that is actually fed, I mean, that grows in your area, and you are not able to advise your people on how to better mechanize or better produce this maize in your area, or you produce cassava, for example, and you're not able to advise your people on how well they can produce and make and empower your community to be able to export or to sell this to people, I mean to buyers, means that you are not an intelligent people. You don't gain knowledge to come and keep within yourself. You gain knowledge in order to expose it. It's like you go to an agri show. What you win at agri show is because of what you bring. Of course, of what you have sown, what you have grown in your farm. And I think that is how knowledge is. Knowledge is demonstrated. Knowledge is showed. Knowledge is incarnated. Knowledge is not kept in within oneself.
Doctor, okay, Dr. Munang, I want you to come in here. What is the perception? Africans out there, you are not in Cameroon, what perception do they have of their intelligentsia? And from our perspective in Cameroon, he's raising the issue of their capacity to solve problems. Do you see them solving the problems faced by their communities?
Dr. Ndimacho and Apostle Ambe, I think we have laid the ground very well and put in perspective. But this is the dimension that I would like to bring to this conversation. And I will start off with this African proverb, which is that wisdom is like a baobab tree, and no one individual can embrace it. But what this means in this discussion is that the implication of the proverb is that intellectualism is unlimited. And I think Apostle Ambe and Dr. Ndimacho has already alluded to this. And it can be manifested any corner in Cameroon, in Africa, and globally. Let me just put it in perspective. Between 2002 to 2021, the highest number of patent holders in Cameroon were not Cameroonians. They were non-resident. And within that time, they had 872 patents, and Cameroonians were only having 30. Does it mean that Cameroon doesn't have intellectuals? No. When you look across the board, what you notice is that in every sector, in the country and abroad, a Cameroonian is there. As we're speaking today, the second best mathematician on earth is a Cameroonian. I'm sure that a lot of us didn't know that. He's a Cameroonian. But when you move to boardrooms, to different organizations, academic halls across the country, there are intelligentsias. And then when you take it down to the point that I'm trying to make, which comes to this aspect that trees are limitless when it comes to intellectualism, our mothers in communities who brought us up and have stable homes, ensured a stable country. Those are intelligentsias in their own right. The informal sector that is contributing 50% of Cameroon and creating 90% of the jobs in the country to stabilize the macroeconomic aspects of the country are intelligentsias in their own right. So overarchingly, when it comes to where have Cameroonian intellectuals helped to grow the country and across the entire African continent, every strata in which each and everyone is in is playing a role. And I think that all of us who are seated today in my media prime, this prime hour, actually intellectuals in our own right, and we cannot ignore to acknowledge the teachers that actually are teaching in primary school, over 100,000 teachers, because each and every year about 4 million kids are graduating into secondary school. And we are a product of that. And they are part of the intelligentsia that have contributed to nation building. And the second aspect that I think we need to look at, which is very, very key, is that the basic education level. I know that we always like to compare Cameroon to other countries in the continent, but when you look to publish academic work, Cameroon is actually top tier. There is one journal that Cameroon, which is a Pan-African journal, that Cameroon have actually published 11 papers that are cutting edge, bringing not just Cameroon to the forefront, but also bringing a knowledge and presenting Cameroon as a brand. We usually compare economic growth with Cameroon, have not even published up to 3 papers in that African journal. And the third aspect that I think is quite very, very important, it's when you look at the country today, the freak of Cameroon, and I know a lot of people sometimes try to downplay this, the freak of Cameroon is in the informal sector. Our mothers and brothers in community, going about their daily life, the buy and sell arms, the pen skins, they contribute 50% to the gross domestic product of the country. The contribution to Cameroon's and studies, including the formulation of the National Program for the Development of Social Economy, contributed by Cameroonians in their own right, each level. And when you look at Cameroon's status globally, when it comes to climate change, for example, Cameroon have not only complied, but Cameroon has produced in the entire Central Africa region the most ambitious and at the same time also what is called climate action plans that they are already implementing. And it's been the result of Cameroonians doing this. So when you look at it from that perspective, there are intellectuals in Cameroon that are doing quite a lot. Now when it comes to technology, the entire African continent, you know that the cardio part, which is actually an innovation by a Cameroonian, to determine when there can be failure, long enough to be treated. A Cameroonian did this, and actually a young person. And there is a Cameroonian who actually developed what is called calibrating radars for self-driving cars. So Cameroon is taking center stage with culture, media, science, actually bringing a lot of aspects. And just to conclude in this opening chapeau is that we cannot forget those in the diaspora, whether they are doing blue-collar jobs or white-collar jobs. And every year, they contribute remittances that are contributing to 1% of budget for the country and helping our brothers and sisters to start their businesses. The contribution in 2022 was $380 million US to the Cameroon economy by those who are African. And therefore, what they do, using ability, intellectual capacity to contribute to the country is also part of the intellectualism that we cannot be able to ignore. Actually, what we should not miss in this discussion is that intellectualism is about usefulness.
Okay, it's about youthfulness. Apostle Ambe Valentine. I want us to see, he has enumerated a lot of things. Let's look at it from the engineering perspective. When you look at those who are doing things to change their lives, so bringing Cameroon to the fore, you see a lot of our students from either survey school, Polytechnic, and a host of others showcasing what we are producing.
Well, Mr. Liu, I must confess the impact is not felt.
Okay.
Yes, our polytechnics equally have a lot of graduates in the society. We have a lot of polytechnics in Cameroon, and to the best of my understanding, the best students that left secondary and high school were the students that were recruited or admitted into the polytechnics in our school, in our nation. And when those people went into those polytechnics, their knowledge disappeared, because what we were expecting to come out from those polytechnics were probably great engineers and scientists that will come out with some great inventions in the society to better off the economic, technological, as well as the scientific sector of the country. But it's so surprising that you will hear a young man scored 5 points in science in A levels, 25 points, I beg your pardon, in science in the A levels, and then he was admitted into the polytechnic. From there, he disappears out of the scene. We don't hear about them anymore. That's the reason why most of our young persons who are intelligent in the domain of science practically are looking for means to evacuate the nation, to leave the nation, to pack out of the country and go somewhere else. This is because I think something like science and technology needs a lot of research. We have a ministry in charge of scientific research, but we are still to find out credible research centers that can give the young people opportunity to dive into proper research and then bring out tangible results in their research. That's where the challenge is. I think the availability of resources to make that domain effective has not been provided, because I think people can only go as far as what is available around them. The challenge with the intellectuals in Cameroon is that they don't have a comfortable environment to study and exploit what actually they have gathered so far. For instance, somebody studies ICT, and then there is no credible lab somewhere where you can go and sit down and carry out research to come out with either apps or some different kinds of things in the domain of ICT. That knowledge will be limited, because the more you have the opportunity to explore the wealth of knowledge inside of you, the more discoveries you make. But it's a lot unfortunate that we don't have the facilities that gives the intellectuals in our nation the possibility. And then unfortunately, some of them study out of the country where they had those facilities. When they come back here,
Apostle Ambe, I had a discussion yesterday with a guy who is producing these block machines. This guy is producing so many machines. He tells me that to assemble a tractor is good money for him. He buys the engine, buys everything, and then last week, yes, he buys a lot of things. We have lots of them who are not been given this opportunity to go to the politics, and that have not been given this opportunity that they are creating.
That's exactly what I'm trying. I'm talking from where you asked the question from the politics and for coming out to the ordinary person.
Yeah. No, because you are giving the impression that okay, these guys have studied, they cannot produce because they don't have what it takes. But these guys are given the opportunities from primary school. Look at what they are producing.
That's what I'm trying to understand. There are certain things you cannot operate because the facilities are available.
Okay.
The reason why technology is advanced on part because the facilities are available to explore. We don't have scientific research to put explore. For instance, what we see Enrico Meta doing is assembling of engine. He doesn't fabricate the parts. If he does the cabin, that has to do with the chassis and the very engine itself. He needs a lab with all the different machinery to fabricate those different parts.
From the level of Enrico.
That's why I'm letting you know. Everybody did not do what Enrico did. And there are particular fields in that if you don't have the opportunity and the facilities, you cannot explore them. That's the truth. So I think when we are talking the intellectual angle from every perspective. We are not centered around the area of the weather because Enrico, to the best of my understanding, is in the welding domain. That is an engineering sector that has to do with welding, and he is using metals around him to fabricate the cabin or the chassis of the machine while he buys the engine from the market. Then you go to Japan, they don't buy engine. China doesn't buy engine. They have factories that fabricate every little bowl, every little cable, every little that. And this is where we are asking the intellectual society of our country to create the facilities where the people who have their brain, we have young men in Boyaye who are very deep in computer. If you go to Silicon Valley, if an atmosphere was created and a comfortable environment was created and facility was given to them, we'll be surprised to see what those young men can bring out from that Silicon Valley there in Boya. So I think that the available resources also to explore the talent of the intellectuals in the country to come out with creativity and products that can affect the society positively is one of the disadvantages that the intellectuals, because we cannot heap coals of fire upon the head of intellectuals because they have a limit to where they can study. As a matter of fact, we are taught in Africa, right? Somebody does specialized in medical science here, you will find a specialist out of the country. He will do general practitioner, he goes and become a neurosurgeon or the pediatrician or become this, because those specialties are not here for us to explore. That's what I'm trying to explain. Yeah.
Sabak says, Gideon says, watching from Bonaberi, Emelda watching from the Babisi, and Google Pelagie watching from Yaoundé, Ngoma says watching from Kumafon South. Good evening, watching from Bonaberi, Sam Richard watching live from Gaundere, Richard watching from Topel, Forward Lionel watching live from Gaundere, Likunze Melise Stanley says watching live from Baturi. Dia says good evening, Saku, more strength, Honorin Lokena says a great job watching live from Cuba. Obaseti says good evening, Mr. Leo. I'm watching live from Douala, Isidore, Nsungkikang. Good evening, Mr. Leo, and everyone in the studio watching live from Douala, Bonaberi. And Senior Pascal, much joy always when you are on Anchor. Maurice, thank you very much. Now, what problems except teaching have our intelligentsia actually solved? We have so many doctors, so many professors. They keep defending hundreds of them every year. And specifically, show what from our universities. What problems are they solving?
Of course, they keep defending, and I'm sure, and I know that they also keep solving problems. Okay. I mean, Dr. Richard enumerated some brilliant Cameroonians who have done quite a lot in the field of science and technology. I mean, without going to any specific cases, I would rather like to talk about the Cameroonians who have studied so well and they need that enabling environment to be able to excel.
Of course.
Okay.
Yes, this is the point of view in which I want to come in. Because to say that they are not excelling, to me, I really think that many have the zeal to excel. Because I don't see anybody who will go to school and come back and think that he's not going to use what he did in school. The problem is that of an enabling environment. And to talk about this, let me give an example of what I listened to Bishop Matthew Cook of the Catholic Diocese of Chicago in Nigeria during the installation ceremony of and he was called to speak with an imam. Two of them spoke, and Bishop Matthew Cook came up and speak with the applause of, a lot of people said, and he said he called some Nigerians because he went to the US, and there are some two Nigerians that he remarked went to a very, very high, I'm sure, to a very, very big school, big university there, and he came back to defend, and he called them, he had defended, and he asked them, you have defended, and I'm sure you come out flying for us. What are you doing? Are you not coming back to Nigeria? He said openly, it was 2 weeks ago, that the response the guys gave was that they said, but how do you come to Nigeria? They don't have a brother or uncle who is not a senator. They don't have a brother or uncle who is a minister. They don't have a brother or uncle who is a parent. So what are they coming to do in Nigeria? Bishop Matthew said it to the hearing of the world. And that is the problem that we are talking about here. It is not that youths who are going to school, the intellectuals, are refusing to produce. They are producing. They are not given the opportunity to produce because people are being chosen to do some of these things. Yeah, let me give an example. You think we have road constructions and we have engineers. Those are graduated from public works and all of those things. We take jobs, even the little engineering work that we're supposed to give to these youth to do. Where do we go to? We go to level. We go to level. This is the one that killing the agenda that we have in our country. And I think that the youth are ready to work. There are youths who are ready to work selflessly, even in the sayings of Martin Luther King, that if you are a street sweeper, sweep in such a way that nobody sees any fault about what you are doing. So I think,
yeah, but in the case of road construction, these are done by companies now.
Which companies?
Road constructions now. You have Soja Satom, who does this. You have China. Yeah, yeah.
That's France.
Yes, the Chinese company that takes.
I understand what you're saying. That is true.
We have the Arab contractors who are from Egypt. Yeah,
I understand where you're coming from. But I want to also make a reconstruction of all of this. Is it that we train our own youth to go take labor from somewhere? Don't you think that we can do a reconstruction and say that, okay, the youth that are coming from Polytechnic, the youth that are coming from public works, we even help them to constitute into company. We didn't help them set up companies in order to give back to the country that sponsored them, or the country that educated them. Why do we think that we should have to go and take labor from abroad because we have already structured companies that have to do this work? I'm just saying that we really need to have a rethink about how we do things. The youth are ready to do, but is a youth able to set up a construction company in Cameroon? I don't think he is able to. And what is another point about it is that our people like to go to abroad to take labor because that is another way of, when they do like that, they know that they can easily have, a remittance of what they are doing. If you take somebody here in Cameroon, it's very, very difficult maybe to have what you want or to get through the corrupt means. I want to give an example of the Wuri Bridge. When we were constructing this Wuri Bridge, even though no Cameroon company came up, but I know other applied, but two were shortlisted, one from France and one from China. Do you imagine that the Chinese company came and their offer was almost half of what the French company was asking? But what did they do? They gave the contract to the French. How do you put all these things in context? So what we are saying is that it's like in Nigeria, what we call the youth service in Nigeria. People give back to the community because they know that the government has assisted in your education. You have to come and give your knowledge, what you have learned, to the community. That is the condition sine qua non before you are employed in the public service in Nigeria. If you don't work as a youth in the youth service, you cannot be employed in the service in Nigeria. This is what we want. This is what we want to happen in many other countries in Africa. why do we think that it is only constituted companies abroad that can come and work in Cameroon, or that can come and work in Nigeria, or that can come and work in Ghana? So I think that we need all of this.
Dr. Ndimacho wants that priority should be given to Cameroonian-based companies so that they use local labor to be able to construct the roads we have around Douala, Yaoundé, and other cities. Good evening, Mr. Liu. By Doctor's point, and to add a bit to it, knowledge is applicable. Gideon is writing from United Arab Emirates. Good evening, Mr. Kum. What a nice topic. Greetings to your panelists. Swiru Kingsley is writing from Kumbu. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I'm big doing so, watching live from Bafusam. I like the program. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I'm Taze watching from Jikwa. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Mr. Tata Ignatius watching from Isokolo Limbe. I'm watching from Bangolan, Ampa Nkeng Yafe. Good evening to you, Pa, for always watching. Interesting program, Mr. Leo. Derek Akum, watching live from Kumba. Good evening, Mr. Leo, watching live from Kumbu. Nui Francis. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I'm Nadesh, watching from Melong. Good evening, Mr. Leo. This is Alfonso, watching live from Betua. Tata Mispa, watching live from Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Ishu Brenda, watching live from Yaoundé. Good evening. I'm Gina, watching from Bamenda. Keep them coming, but also tell us which university is the best in Cameroon. Which private university? We are rerunning this. We did this competition some months back, but we are doing it all over to be able to tell who is the best private university according to our viewers. Dr. Munang out there, let's look at the field of our research. We have had challenges in Cameroon, in Africa. How well have our scientists or our researchers done to tell us either telling us beforehand how to handle specific situations that befall us, or even in the course of happenings like COVID and a host of others? How do they help to turn things around?
Yeah, thanks again, Mr. Luo. I think before I answer your question, let me put in perspective what Professor Ambe and Dr. Ndimacho have beautifully articulated. And I think what's coming out there is that intellectualism is not a preserve for a certain group of people or for the few, but it is about usefulness and it's about value. And because of that, regardless of whether you are a researcher or not, and you are not offering value in what you are doing, then definitely you are not an intellectual. And I think this is a very important point, because our mothers who raised us use innovative ways. Even when they didn't have a budget, they didn't have money, they will find a way to improvise so that we can be able to have food on the table. Now, when you look at that from that perspective, I think it boils down to one word: mindset. And this mindset then gets into your question, which is African scientists being the circumstances in which they are in. And I think much of we don't have all the tools. We are doing everything that is possible. The drug for malaria was actually a collaboration with a local university in the DRC. But today we talk about it. But I think the mention that I want to answer the question focusing on is that we do not believe in our abilities to be able to bring transformational development. Almost so that even when we have the knowledge, we never believe that we can be able to do it, and others come and take it away from us. And sometimes the change comes in the laboratory aspect. When you look across the continent, including in Cameroon, when you are doing an innovative idea, which a lot of them discussed on my media prime each and every day, people always ask, where does it work? The question is, what should it as it work? Why can't we start it so it work, or build on what is working, then fill the gaps? And because of the mindset of never believing that even what works when we are able to put effort, we are always chasing the wind. Because of that, the excellent work that is done in the continent by African scientists, by African anthropologists, by historians, sometimes never make that center stage because we do not believe in it. That's the first point. The second point is that once we fine-tune, actually format our minds to think that we are unable to do it, makes us not to believe in ourselves, and then what we produce get carried away. And travel across the continent today, there are two kinds of success stories and excellent examples of innovations. But those innovations actually do not make center stage or headline for quite a very long time. Why? Because a lot of people do what I call an experimental vision, which is quite very simple. Bring that which fits into someone else's vision, not our own as a continent. And therefore, we need to develop what I call an unborrowed vision, which is to be able to utilize what is available to our people and solve the problems that are peculiar, problems of food insecurity, problems of water shortage, problems of ensuring that we can value what we produce using local textual solutions that are fit for purpose. Unless we do that, even what we do at the end of the day, the researchers publishing might not be able to find center stage because our people may not be able to embrace it. The last part is that the brain of a human being is the laziest part in a human being. And the brain, because it's the laziest part, get fed in with information that have to do with ease, then the information stays there. Because the brain plays what is called avoidance of yes. And when you fit in the brain with I am poor, growing up hearing I am poor, it will remain in your mind. It's what the brain remembers. Anything that is of ease, the brain remembers. Anything that is out of adversity, that doesn't necessarily remember. And that's why when we talk about ease, complaining, don't get into our minds very easily. So what I want to say here is that excellence is the result of adversity, and adversity needs resilience. With being resilient, we might not be able to overcome the challenges that we face. And therefore, adversity is not a big thing. It's in adversity that innovations are born. And therefore, when we focus on talking challenges rather than talking solutions to those challenges, we end up filling the mind with the easy thinking and then end up not having the solutions. So what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say here is that we need a mindset reset. To use Dr. Ndimacho's word, we need a rethinking and a reimagination. How we can leverage what works, build on it, so that it can be able to benefit society. And that's the essence of intellectualism, which, as I said earlier, it's about being useful, offering value to society in our different spheres and domains.
Rudolph, watching from Boya, as a primary pupil, we were provided time on our timetables for handwork. During this time, we were drilled on how to dig and transform clay into water pots, flower jars, and other objects, cut and transform trees into walking sticks, cooking implements, and other wooden objects. Use cow dung horns to produce drinking cups, buttons, okay. Use bamboos to produce benches, beds, etc. After primary, you could see a child without a benefactor fend for him or herself. So I think the curriculum of a country contributes to the intelligentsia. How positive have our curriculum been modified to suit our contemporary society? The situation in Cameroon, where a cosmetologist is assigned to work in the position of a civil engineer, is a negative factor to bearing the intelligentsia of the nation. Is raising an issue of the curriculum, because we talk about intelligentsia. Yes, they were trained to solve problems, but if you are trained in something where those problems don't exist, you're rendered redundant, because you create thousands of persons with no needs.
That's true. That's a very serious point of our curriculum. And then secondly, we have been trained to follow our passion. Much of what we follow as passion is not demanded in the market.
Okay.
You don't study what is your passion, you study what is needed in the market. I think we should rebrand our educational system and be able to educate our children to understand that they shouldn't study what they love, they should not study what they are passionate about, they should study what is a solution to the market. Somebody cannot go to the university and study something that will never be demanded tomorrow in the market. You must be marketable. You must be productive. Because one of the characteristics of an intellectual is somebody that proposes solutions to normative problems in the society. One of the functions. And sometimes I use the word propose deliberately. And there are many intellectuals in our society who have proposed, yet their ideas have been dumped to the gutters. And that is a description. An intellectual is somebody, one of his characteristics is somebody that carries out research and then proposes solutions to normative problems in the society. But sometimes young body people will struggle. I know of guys who have gone to Australia, America, Germany, France, Denmark, come back to the country and propose ideas in solving particular problems. Those ideas were bundled for political reasons and dumped into the gutters. I think we cannot just rob or downplay or minimize the contribution of intellectuals, especially when they are bringing up intellectual ideas, positive ideas to grow the society as proposals. Yet those proposals are bundled and dumped, because we live in a society where people will only definitely take an idea as long as their interest is defended in it. If their interest is not protected in that idea, no matter how brilliant and excellent it is, the political, whether you like it or not, politics is infiltrating almost every sector in the society. Politics, that very food you are eating on the table is part of politics. The dress you are wearing is part of politics. The car you are sitting in is a part of politics. It is the political protocols that guide the car you drive, the food you eat, the dress you wear. So sometimes intellectuals will come with very brilliant ideas. They propose solutions to normative problems. There is a guy I watch on social media, they call him Bison. That guy has been able to grow these apples that grow in Greece and France, which we were told some years ago that the apple could not grow in this country. What has been done so far to do a large-scale production on that skill, that ability he has? He's not just a doctor. He's not an agronomist. That is somebody by grace and his ingenuity. He was able to farm in Cameroon soil, or on Cameroon soil, what we have been told for years by deception that it can never hold. I think that is a very sensitive issue to be addressed, because having ideas as intellectual is one thing. Proposing those ideas to be accepted for execution is another thing. And the challenge we have is that most of these intellectuals come up, they propose very brilliant ideas, and their ideas are dumped into the gutters. So I think we should start regulating the society in such a way by people can be able to contribute their ideas and help better the society. There are so many policies that have punctured the expression of intellectuals in the country, and this is the reason why we are insisting. Because Dr. Ndimacho said something, Dr. Brucha said something, that we don't have children we send to school that we do not believe in them. We train civil engineers, we can't trust them to construct our roads, we can't trust them to construct government structures. We train doctors that we cannot trust them. Our ministers fly out of the country to go and treat themselves. Why we have a school in this country that trains medical doctors? How can we be training products that we do not even trust in? We don't even have specialist centers where somebody can come out as a cancerologist, a pediatrician, a neurologist, and a neurosurgeon. Those are the things that help to fortify and strengthen. If you look at certain communities, the reason why you see a place like Rwanda is creating impact, because specialist centers are being created that you can specialize and focus on one thing. Health in Africa is not like the health in Europe. If you go to Europe, there's somebody who is specialized only on the ear, somebody on the eye. You don't need to study the whole system to be a doctor. You can be specialist in bones, somebody specialized in the nerves, somebody specialized in the brain, somebody in the eye, somebody in the ear. Then you see we have in Africa a general practitioner, somebody who touches almost every field. You can be a jack of all trades and master of none. And I think that one of the things that has punctured our intellectuals in Africa is that they are not specialists. There's a difference between studying and having knowledge and being a specialist in a particular domain. Intellectualism also, in order to provide solutions to normative problems in the society, you must specialize in the field. And that sector of specialty is not part of the African society. That's the reason why you know a little here, a little there, a little here, a little there, and then a man can have knowledge in almost every field, but he's not effective and he's not very, very apt in a particular field. You see a political scientist will tell you a bit of law, he will tell a bit of public administration, he jumbles up everything. But if you find somebody who is studying this domain, he will tell you that I am a historian, but I'm an archaeologist. He specializes in a field and becomes very effective in it. So that's the reason why our educational curriculum has a question mark. With respect to the question you just asked me, the educational curriculum has a question mark because we don't drill people to become expert in a particular area. If they say somebody is an ophthalmologist in America, is somebody who has taken 6-7 years to sit on eyes. It will tell you every defect of the eye. Somebody can tell you the ear, somebody can tell you the brain, somebody can tell you the blood system, somebody can tell you the bones, somebody can tell you the nerves, somebody can tell you the intestines. That's their field of operation. But you see, what we have here is somebody who is being taught on how to give drugs in those areas. How to give drugs, and then there's somebody who is just trained in an area to conduct general tests in the body. And this is what we have in serious. That's why we keep flying abroad, we keep flying to India. If you look at India of late, they don't have engineers in almost every area. The particular area that India is known for is information technology and health. That's because they took their time to allow persons to specialize in that particular area. When kidneys and lungs and liver and cancer cases, diabetic cases, supersedes all the doctors in Africa, we fly them to India, and some because there's opportunity for them to exploit the talent in them, skill in them. There is a level through which the intellectual, all what you study as knowledge in books will be dropped. You will put that innate energy inside you to draw wisdom, which is beyond the five senses. And this is where we have to take research to persons in Europe and America who have the opportunity to stay only in labs for years, and their families are collecting salary to come out with creative ideas. So I think we should get down to work to make sure that our intellectuals get the facilities and the educational curriculum to be adjusted in such a way that somebody can become a particular field of interest and become a specialist in it. Not this time we are jack of all trades. We study that we do not need. We study we do not need. I have a friend who read the gas and the University of Where and some that they do draw corporate in primary school. Of what essence of has that cockroach been now to you? We will make, we talk as joke and we'll laugh. That's because we gather things on our path we did not need. That's the reason why somebody can go to America within 3 years, he's a doctor. But you need to spend 6, 7 years in Africa, 8 years to become a doctor. You practically know everything, but you're not a specialist in anything. Okay.
Mr. Leon Panis, good evening. On favorable environment, there is no focus. As a consequence, most Cameroonians don't discover the divine design of life and thus regret. A few that discover excellence out of the line. Reason why Cameroon doesn't feel them back home. Pastor Ambe can talk better on a vision. Gala Divine for you is writing from Cambe. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Your program is always interesting. Keep the good work. Sangong Franklin watching from Boya. Greetings to all in the studio. And Sabu Betes Tanto writing from Suza. Good evening to you all in the studio. I wish you to create time for calls, especially for topics that concerns nation building. We have brave guys in the country, but with no orientation. They want to do all at a time. That's where we fail. Okay, Caleb is writing from Amenda. Exactly what Apostle Ambe just said. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Stella Tifu watching live from Batoke Limbe. Good evening, Mr. Liu. My late uncle, Dr. Ndio, rest in peace, bought hectares of land at Bomaka to build a hospital, but the government tax system drove him away. His children are running the said hospital in the United States of America. What about youths who did all to tar the route to the then only had operation center at Shisong? Did the government not refuse that it's a government road? What about our late Fonlon? If money was to be harvested at the summit of Cameroon to go abroad, okay, at my old age I will go up there to leave this most wicked country. Okay, Masu is writing from Boya. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Luis Ben watching from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Kuma. I'm enjoying the intellectual discussion in the studio. I think if our intellectuals could use their minds creatively as define our country is going to be first to known. Cameroon has intellectuals, but the mindset is a big problem. Keep on. The real intellectuals are gradually converting. Okay, John from Ghana Street in Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Yengo Stevie watching from Jakiri. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Guy Emmanuel watching from Binka in Cambe. The best university is the Catholic University of Cameroon. Good evening to you all in the studio. Nice program. Paul Ngam from Lycom in Funong. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Reverend Columbus Yande watching from Bingui. Greetings to the panelists in the studio. Now, I wanted to read a message so that you can, I'm watching from Boya. It's wasteful topic on air. Our intellectuals have contributed less to the country's growth. The theory of godfatherism is found in every field, even a security or gate man in a company there, because he is the cousin or niece to the manager. How do you explain a situation where an agri technician is placed in the medical department, or a minister of culture who can't speak even his mother's tongue? Along the line there was an issue with intellectuals involved. We should be judged by our consciences. She, Tams Godric, writing there. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the entire panelists. Each time I tune on this program, I feel relaxed. The Cameroon government just believe that every Cameroonian is just as corrupt as them. That's why they prefer to use home-based companies or subcontractors as subcontractors instead of major contractors, even when some of these Cameroonian engineers can do better than foreign companies. Theodore Mengot, writing from Yaoundé. No. The intellectuals also, are they not, what he's saying is some of them were very competent, maybe frustrated because of this notion of godfatherism, corruption, and nepotism in our community.
Yes, I think I made mention of that, and I even quoted an example from a bishop in Nigeria who called some people, Nigerian youths from the US, to come back, and they put this issue of godfatherism down. My father is not a senator, I don't know a minister, I don't know a parliamentarian, so what am I coming back to do? Because when you come back, you need to know somebody before you are employed. And I think that it goes about that. Not only godfatherism, we also have the issue of ethnic crisis or ethnic divisions that we have in Cameroon. You will not have a particular job if you are not from a particular region in Cameroon. So we need to say this truth. It is very, very important that you have in Cameroon whereby people, you go to certain ministries or in certain companies or certain industries. I mean, you find that those who have top ranking jobs in those places are people from a particular region. And this is killing intellectualism, because you find that competence is sacrificed on the altar of nepotism. And this is what we are decrying. Until Cameroonians learn to be one and to work as one and to give competence its rightful place, then we are not going to go anywhere. You also see this issue of the bilingual nature that we have in Cameroon, whereby some people are looking at others with skepticism, that you bring a project and somebody just said, man, you are bringing this project, you are from where? Where are you coming from with this project? And you see the project is discarded. I want to give an example. All of us know this household name, Victor Anomango in Cameroon, who came up with his Vanivax, that is, what was going to be a cure for HIV/AIDS. I mean, nobody in Cameroon say, we don't know Victor Anomango. I remember there's a minister of health, of public health in Cameroon, who referred to him as a charlatan. And simply because there's that prejudice, you know. He knows that Victor Anomango, if Victor Anomango came from a particular region in Cameroon, he would have been given the necessary or the needed regard. And that his Vanabax will have gone places, because there were people who were even coming from abroad to come and see how they can be able to promote that. But Victor Anomango, since he was from Cameroon and since he was coming from a particular region in Cameroon, he was not given the necessary regard, and that died down. So I think that talking about godfatherism, talking about any divisions that we have in Cameroon, we need to curtail this. We need to have a different construction about all of these things. Until we have this, we are not going to promote our intelligentsia in Cameroon. But let us go further and see how most students are admitted in some of these professional schools. You know, we gave an example. I gave an example here one day of, opening a school of teachers higher training college in Marwa, and the elites coming out and say, we want this quota of children from this particular region to integrate this institution. Whether the children were to come from where, or whether they were intelligent or not, they just wanted to gather them. And you see, the government bowed down. So the government too has its unfair share in all of this that we are having, is happening in Cameroon. The government needs to stand up on its feet and hit his hand on the table. Let us talk about the issue of sponsorship of projects. We have had a lot of youths in Cameroon who have gone to school, who are intellectuals, who are doctors. And I have colleagues who have gone out of the country and they are faring well in other countries, even teaching in better universities, and we completed here in Cameroon. And let me tell you, Cameroonians are very, very intelligent. When they go out there, they are intelligent. Who doesn't know Cameroonians who are excelling over there? Who don't know the Vera Songes, the John Kengason, and all of those people who are very over there? Who doesn't know about the big people at the FOCAM and all of those people who are making Cameroon, I mean, who are even respected internationally more than in Cameroon? And you see, most of these people are leaving the country and they are going out because most of these guys, when they come out, they present their project, there is nobody to sponsor. You know, what is making the force in Europe and America is that you come out as a student, you write your project. There are agencies that can sponsor your project. And they know that this is how you're going to give back to the community. But in Cameroon, once you completed your education, I learned somebody the other day saying that since the government sponsor you in a higher education for almost no fee, I mean, you just have to go your way. Because they think that 50,000 is almost no fee. So when you finish with that 50,000 francs, I mean, you just, after that, you just go your way. Then you don't have to look on the government anymore. And this is how the best of our knowledge, the best of the intellectuals are leaving the country. It is not that we cannot do it. We can actually do it. Let me tell you, it's not revealing to anybody that there are many contracts that people, I mean, companies from abroad come to take in Cameroon, but they are rather Cameroonian companies, I mean, that have come together that are doing the job. And the companies abroad are just bearing the name, just acting as a cover. We are even talking about companies coming abroad. How many French people do you see when you have companies here in Cameroon, when they even take a project? Most of them are Cameroonians. They take Cameroon. It means that Cameroonians are intelligent. They can do it. If we believe in ourselves, if we believe that we can do it, if we don't believe in ourselves, why don't we close down the schools, the technical schools, I mean, the professional schools? Why don't we close them down? And our leaders are making us have the impression that they do not believe in the institution that we have in Cameroon. Why do you explain the fact that somebody will have a minor surgery and goes to Swiss? We have had a Minister of Health who left and went to Swiss to do a minor surgery, something they can do here in Cameroon. What explains the fact that children of high ranking of the bourgeoisie in Cameroon, they will only go and complete their studies over there? What explains the fact that somebody is sick? Or, I mean, we only look for medical attention out to the country. It shows that we do not believe in our own labor, in our own intellectuals. I think that we need to believe in them. If we believe in them, we give them the necessary tools, they are going to go far, and I'm sure they are going to work further. We look at the issue of scholarships. If you are not the son of this, you don't come from this region, you don't come from this particular lineage, you will never have a scholarship in Cameroon. You will go abroad. I mean, there are countries that offer scholarship to Cameroonians. I'm of the university milieu, and you realize we are making a study. When countries offer scholarship in Cameroon, you go to certain countries, no university, you see people from the
you may never, or you will never, because there are poor. There are no persons from very poor backgrounds who have benefited from scholarships and have been sent.
I mean, you are talking about chunks of things. We are talking about things that we can after handle and quote them scientifically. I mean, when you are writing a paper, you not talk about isolated cases. That one is true. That sometimes when you want to erase or cover your deals, you will always have a kind of a thing to show proof of. That is what we are talking about.
Yes, Dr. Munang, we are talking about what our intelligentsia has done so far to move this nation forward, but not to say that the nation is not doing badly compared with other nations, but are we also not up to the level as expected by so many persons because of this notion of brain drain, where the best guys who go to ENS trained by the state leave the nation for greener pastures away. For this nation, we have the government that also spends a lot of money to train doctors. After that, they leave the country, and so many persons are going from different fields.
The world is a global village, and wherever one is can contribute back to his own country and to his own community. And I think the question should actually be how they are giving back to their country. And I think to a larger extent, yes. But more importantly, there is very little one can be able to do alone unless he builds alliances. And I think one of the biggest challenge, which I'll build on a point that Dr. Ndimacho have made, is that when you don't have an enabling environment where excellence is appreciated, because excellence is not an event, it's a habit. And when your best are not incentivized to give their talents to perfect their skills and give back to society and get appreciated. In that process, you are going to lose them. Because incentives are not only money, they are also enabling environment and appreciation. When people know that they are not appreciated in whatever thing they do, they're going to go to look for alternatives. Because let's face it, Cameroon doesn't lack ideas. So do Africa. Cameroon doesn't lack innovations. So do Africa. But what has been missing in Cameroon and across the entire continent is incentives. And that incentives for appreciation of actually rewarding the best in society, because then that becomes an opportunity for others to know that if they work hard, who merit, they can then be able to be elevated to higher levels. Unless we start to focus on this dimension, we might end up losing our best, which is something that is causing brain drain. At the same time, brain drain is not a big problem, but the problem is what is causing it. And unless the causes are addressed, then the symptoms being focused on at the moment might not actually help. Let me bring us back to the center of this issue. Regardless of how intelligentsias in Cameroon and Africa play their part, the citizens are actually the drivers of transformational change. It is people who do development for themselves. We can only come in as intelligentsias wherever we are. And I'm saying we, not me alone or Dr. Ndimacho or Apostle Ambe or Mr. Luo, but as Africans, we can only play our part, but the citizens themselves need to meet in the middle to be able to take things forward. Because the argument that I was elucidating earlier was that when you look at an innovation that has happened in Cameroon or in Africa, can frown on it. When it is an imported solution, they embrace it. It means that it's a mindset issue, and this stems back to colonial periods. When Africans believe in anything external, externalizing solutions, because the externalized solutions, they increase their risk tolerance, which then means that if something is not brought in, then they're not going to believe in their own. And it boils down to the national and even continental level, where every day, I can tell you, and I listen to this show nearly any time that I have the opportunity, ideas being spurred on your show by your panelists. If those ideas were to be listened to and implemented by citizens and by policymakers, Cameroon will be a first world today, and Africa will be a first world. So what is the issue? The issue is one, attitude. The attitude must be de-risked from depending on others to do things to start doing. The argument will be that, oh, we're doing it. You are doing it, but are you doing it expecting others to meet you halfway, or you are waiting for others to with you? And that's where the problem becomes. The second aspect is that waiting for government all the time and discussing as if there are no policies, to me, is a misnomer. Of course, government have to put in place incentives. It's breaks for young people to be able to run their businesses, give them so that they can run their business for 5 years without paying taxes. And devising microfinance organization so that government budget 1% can be able to be channeled through something with Chinese microfinance or cooperatives. This is something that can possibly happen. At the end of the day, are the citizens willing? And the point last time that I was making was that when you look at the attitude of accepting reality and projecting the best, missing in the equation of Africa's development, then we end up focusing on blame game because our brain, the mind is the laziest, as I said, part in the human body. But when you feed it with negativity, it absorbs it faster than absorbing positivity or space that can be used for energy. And that is why when we grow up hearing we are poor, we believe that we are poor. Poverty is not just lack of money or resources. It's a defeated mindset. And unless we start to engage in this dimension and focus on the dimension that, look, being poor is not the end of the world. Not having is not the end of the world, but the lack of ability to start is the biggest challenge that we have. And others say, yes, we started and we could not continue because we're not supported. Nobody will support you until you support yourself. And that is why this point I made. Excellence is born of adversity. And everywhere in the world today, those who fought for self-determined rule to give the independence that Africa so much needed, they went through adversity, and today we enjoy the fruits. But our biggest issue today is not about just liberating from colonial rule, but liberating our minds. But more importantly, socio-economic liberation. Let's start to use stages so that at least our youth or mothers or brothers and sisters to start. I must appreciate because I saw him last time encouraging the stage to be able to teach agricultural that they can get into appropriation. So from immediate time is using the stage to be able to can actually be taken off by individuals and policymakers to do so. And this is why earlier, unless we start to take responsibility, we know that our responsibility is useful, and usefulness is doing that which turns a challenge into an opportunity. Then we will continuously progress and see intellectual space where there is just too much. Sometimes we forget and look aside, make us over.
Okay, let's look at the role politics has played in making use of the intelligentsia in Cameroon. Has politics also contributed in making them more useful to their communities, or making rubbish out of the substance that they carry?
Politics in Africa particularly has destroyed intellectuals. I'm going to be talking this passionately because I think it's one of the major reasons why our intellectuals are suffering. The first thing is that there are two categories of intellectuals. There is a muscular nervous and there is the intellectual cerebral. That is to say, there is man the maker and there is man the thinker. Two categories of people. One man uses his muscles to produce, another man uses his mind to produce. Would it not be amazing to realize that somebody goes to university, spends 5 years, 7 years, obtains a PhD degree, gathers knowledge, well educated, comes back because there is no opportunity for him to express that knowledge. He joins a political party that tells him to follow party protocols. You see, wealth of knowledge is subjugated under political guise. That is to say, you have this knowledge enough to help better the society, but because you are not permitted to voice it out, following the ethics and protocols of a political party, intellectual knowledge gathered for 7 years under research, bundled and kept under a political party because of political interest. We have a lot of politicians in this country who are intellectuals. They know the truth, and from what they have studied, the ideas they have can better the judiciary, the legislative, as well as the executive. They can even better the scientific sector, technological sector, as well as the economic sector. Then you see, because they are not willing to lose the positions they occupy in the government, they will not bring out that truth. How can somebody burn the midnight oil, endure night sleepless, put your feet in water, sleep, go for research from one village to another, one community to another, read books upon books, write theses, defend, come back to be a blessing to your community? Politics gather 15, 20, 25 years of education and swallows it in the name of not voicing out the truth because it will affect the integrity of a political party. Politics has helped to silence, puncture and paralyze our intellectuals in this country. I know of many intellectuals who are controlled by political parties and they are not given the chance to express themselves. The moment you struggle to express yourself to some extent, they are telling you are going through the ethics of that party. That skill and ability you have acquired for many years is quenched because politics is giving you bread to eat and has not allowed you to express the acquired knowledge you've gathered for so many years. This is where politics has become the poison in the society. We live in a society whereby people use politics as a means of livelihood rather as a platform to serve the community. Politicians are called to serve the community that we are using as a means of livelihood. Politics is not a platform through which we make riches, but that is what our intellectuals are using. Now, definitely, it has caused them to hide the knowledge. You go and see them in the private, you hear the amount of knowledge they spill out. But because they are afraid to puncture their positions given to them in the system that operates, it punctures them from expressing that knowledge. What is the essence of spending 25 years in school? That's why you see, I don't like working under protocols that give me some kind of suffocated atmosphere where I cannot express my ability. I have said that If people can't place value on what you have in your country, outsiders will place value. We are in Cameroon. Time will tell. But the truth is, to be sincere, politics has not helped intellectuals in this country. You meet an intellectual behind the doors, he will tell you practical solutions that affects and counters the present operations of the government in position. But he will tell you cannot say it, because if you say it, it's going to threaten the bread and the butter they give you for livelihood every day. That's how dangerous it is. So now we have the muscular nervous, we have the intellectual cerebral, the person that operates with the brain, the one that operates with the hand. The man that operates with the hand works well when the man that operates with the brain operates, because there are individuals who may never open a farm, but they have energetic young men in their community. They can go and organize seminars, train those young men basic skills on how to do farming. The young man now takes his physical energy to engage in the field. Not every agronomist intellectually is called to work in the farm, but they can produce and multiply farmers. The essence of knowledge is duplicating yourself in others. If at all what you have gathered so far has not affected others around you, then you are a misfit in the society. I don't care the PhD you have, I don't care how intelligent you have. If you have not duplicated yourself in others, you're wasting your time. Paul told Timothy, the things I have taught you, you have to flow for faithful men and teach them, who will in turn teach others that are coming behind them. It is a legacy you are leaving for a generation. Not that you gather knowledge, you come and join a political party, they give you a post, you gather the wealth of knowledge you have, because that knowledge you want to affect the protocols guiding that party. You sit and you do nothing about it. That's how dangerous it is. So I think politics has not, I repeat, helped intellectuals in this nation or in Africa.
Yes, but they themselves, most of the politicians themselves are intellectuals. But is it not also because of the respect of party disciplines? Because when you are within a party, yes, instead of doing what you are appointed to do, you must respect party discipline. Take the case of our MPs.
Of course.
I think, before even coming to the issue,
not only for CPDM,
not everywhere.
Look at what happened to Tamfu yesterday.
That is the issue, and you know why. My problem is not really party discipline. My problem is, why do some people join politics?
Okay,
this is one of a fundamental question we should ask. Is it because life is just so difficult in? Let me look at the African context as a whole. That people think joining politics is getting rich very soon. This is what is happening. So my problem is not even getting there and being caged, because people know the reality before you get in. And I know that their articles that expel them out, those are even things that they know about. But it's just that sometimes when you get in and you want to play heroism, that's what happens. You cannot stand by the moving water and disapprove of its current. No way. You know that this is what is going to befall you. And my problem is not with the discipline. My problem is the way young people are getting into politics for the wrong reasons. And I want to take our government to task. The government, the way things are being done, is directly encouraging people to join politics, because they know when you get into politics, just at one moment, if you have your luck, you get there so soon. So we really need to, Africans as a whole, I know our environment is such a very, very hard one to treat through. Because while in Europe and America, people get up and the first thing they think is what they can do that is going to add value in the community. The first thing that an African gets up to do is, what am I going to eat first? So food is not a problem in Europe, but food is a problem in Africa. And this is where we are starting from. Why is food a problem in Africa? We have had a lot of our sons and daughters who are leaving the country. I even want to appreciate Dr. Richard. I mean, this is a young Cameroonian who is excelling abroad. He could also even do better here, but he is out of the country. I don't know by providence or by wish or by whatsoever, but he's out of the country. And he's doing marvelously well. I remember when he had his last appointment, many of us went jubilating, because we know the son of the soil has been appointed because of hard work. So we need to appreciate people like this, but we say that the government needs, in other country, you get this brain. This is brain drain. We call it brain drain. You need to bring them back. It's not only politics. I would like to think that we also have civil society activists who are even classified inside the intelligentsia. They are people who are supposed to open the eye of the government and direct the government on what is supposed to, and advise the government on some of those things. But what do? Civil society activities has become the fastest way to grow rich. They pick big wheelchairs and sofas in their offices, waiting for external sponsors to come and give them money. They write false report, pick up pictures on the internet and put them on the board for people to come and sponsor them. And they do not care about the environment. It's like you find a Yinkwe Ama will say, chop, country brook, or country spoil. This is what is happening. I think that we need to blame them because they are getting there for the wrong reason. They are not getting there because we want to serve. People don't get into politics because they want to serve. And you know, service is part of the intelligentsia. If you even get and you have the know-how and you don't know how to serve people, means that that know-how doesn't have any use. Imagine a doctor who receives patients in a hospital very rudely. Even if you are working, even if you have set a hospital and you are not able, you don't have that customer service, that to receive customer with that humility that you have. I think service to the community, knowing how to serve people is also a plus that we have to look into. It is very, very important that we get into some of these things. I mean, when you are educated, you are able to formulate, ideas and get the government follow those ideas. And that is why I still say that politics is a good thing, but politicians are bad. Because with politics, you direct the government, you tell the government you are supposed to be here, this is what you are doing, and you create an awareness in the community, right from the base, right to the top. And you create that awareness, and once the government knows that you as an opponent, you are creating awareness, they adjust. And those who are in position of power, they rise up, they sit us, and they are able to get the country moving. I will also talk about the clergymen. When I was doing my definition of the intellectuals, I also talk about the clergymen. Who are clergymen serving today? Are they serving themselves, or they are serving the people for whom they are called to serve? This is where the problem is. You will find that I listened to somebody yesterday, and he said, when you have somebody who is standing and they think that he is, because you see clergymen who are growing fatly rich and Christians who are growing extremely and desperately poor, and they are brainwashed. And they keep on thinking that there is somebody and there's an El Dorado, somebody who come from the strange land to come and save them. But I don't blame them. The country has led them to this kind of thing. So the clergy too, they have a role to play. And it's not only a role of asking people to pay tithe, but also asking, open their eyes, being a moral reformer in the society. Why? In other countries we have mornings of prayers. In other countries we have clergymen in government. Why is the government leaving the clergymen in Cameroon or in Africa as a whole? They need to be moral reformers to moralize those who have gone to education. And that is why I teach in a professional university whereby when you go for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years and you have to graduate, they go they take you that class out to what they call service ethic. They go for ethical formation because they know that you have gained the intellect, you have gained the knowledge, but there is one thing that is lacking, that if you do not gain, you are not going to serve your country, your people well, and that is that ethics and morality that they take you up for 1 month and they lock you people somewhere, and there are people who come to educate you on how you can serve your people. So I think that our clergymen, our politicians, our civil society activists, they have a big role to play. We don't just need to blame the government. We too have our own role to play in the society. Okay.
Greetings to you and panelists. How do you contribute to the development of your country when the government doesn't recognize its citizens abroad? Thanks, Dr. Wesley. Angoni is writing from the United States of America. How much is this true, Dr. Richard Munang, when Dr. Wesley says it's difficult for you guys out there to contribute because the government does not recognize its citizens? Is Dr. Wesley talking about dual nationality here, the issue of dual nationality?
I think for the case of Cameroon, dual nationality is, it doesn't have any law in place to accept dual nationality, but I think that there are Cameroonians in their own right who are contributing to the development of the country. It's not only through government that you can contribute. There are youth initiatives which have been privileged also to engage with leveraging on what is called innovative volunteerism. And we are seeing them turning agricultural waste into fuel briquettes, into burgers, and creating their businesses. So to somehow say that government is a a kind of a hindrance to supporting the country and driving development, to me, I think is a misnomer. Let me go back to this point that Dr. Ndimacho has mentioned, especially on the point of service, selflessly applying service. If one is not selfless, regardless of whether the enabling environment is there or not, you will still not be able to contribute to your community. Because the first thing is what to be useful for, because the purpose of life is to be useful. And the usefulness should be to solve problems, to turn challenges into opportunities, and not only complaining. And there is always an excuse. There are always going to be challenges. But what we must always do is to look what is happening, that we can be able to contribute our own quota using not only our knowledge, but also the opportunities that we have. It is about giving new knowledge, like my media prime, this prime hour is doing. Give the new knowledge, and the willing are going to pick up that new knowledge. If it is about inspiring a young person to see his or herself as capable to do something, let's do that. But when we see sometimes and about how the government is not working, how civil society is not working, how the intellectuals and lecturers are not playing their part, the question should be, what as an individual doing? And am I playing my part before I accuse another person? I think until we come to that level of actually answering the question, what am I useful for in terms of my own contribution to my own country and continent, then take stock of what each and every one have done, when we are going to be behind, because even if all the enabling policies are in place and citizens are not willing to tap into those policies, then there is going to be no development. I think that one aspect that is very key that was also mentioned, Dr. Ndimacho mentioned about food. Yes, food is important, but at the same time, that is also where opportunities are. I've said this so many times in the show that Africa import unemployment and export employment, spending over $48 billion that could be used to actually into other socio-economic transformational development sectors. It uses that to import food that is worth 48, but at the same time also endure post-harvest losses that are worth $48 billion. So the point should be, let's look at what the young people are doing in their own right in communities and support them to close the gap so that at least there can be progress. Politics is a conduit that is supposed to be leveraged to propagate policy, which is the biggest driver of change to drive transformational development. It is a vehicle. Politics is a vehicle. And everybody who is in any political party those policies get implemented so that coming out of that kind of reform policy, to say this again, government is not a repository for solutions anywhere in the world. They also look for solutions, and that is why intelligentsia from academia, from civil society, many citizens, forget solutions and ideas that can be picked up when informed rejecting policy. We need a sober attitude. What I mean by this is, we need to listen. We need to learn from those who know. We need to know that it is not only having a PhD that one can have ideas, that our masters in communities who never went to school were able to manage not just our homes, but using their own ingenuity. Until we start to appreciate one another and leverage on what each and everyone is doing, from that youth in the community to the PhD, to the medical doctor, to the engineer, to the social scientist, idea matters. Then that is when we can be able to make transformational progress. But sitting and complaining and blaming everyone only retrogress and doesn't inspire. Let's to inspire one another, knowing that it is in adversity that challenges can be turned into opportunities. Over.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Kum Leonard, and to our dear courageous panelists. Politics has not helped our intellectuals per se, but the obstacles of it presents to intellectuals should motivate these intellectuals to be creative innovative and entrepreneurial to keep solving the problems of our world. Challenges should rather motivate our intellectuals. The future of Africa lies in more and more public-private partnerships, especially along the lines of promoting entrepreneurship. Kudos to our brother Apostle Ambe. However, may he not forget that specialists must first and foremost be general practitioners. He must also realize that for our learners to eventually become globally competitive experts, one must first know his or her purpose in life, which necessarily ties with his or her God-given talent. What one is passionate about most often ties with one's God's given talents. John Alo Ebi, writing from Meda. Pardon me, sometimes without my glasses, painful for me. Good George, writing from Boya. Simple logic: the government should just give 60% preferences to private sectors because we have brilliant, creative people in this country. Let's look at the domain of economics. We have good guys. Let's see how world creation they have been into as economics, as the big professors in entrepreneurship.
Yes, Mr. Liu, I cannot actually, once I met a doctor of marketing, and I asked him, why is it that most of you who study marketing only choose to come to lecture in classrooms? You don't create us the big supermarket like Mahima, name them.
Or work for them. Or work for them as a consultant.
Why don't you guys create those supermarkets for us? Why is that we are in Cameroon? The biggest supermarkets are controlled by Lebanese, the biggest supermarkets are controlled by Chinese, the biggest supermarkets are controlled by strangers. Or we have doctors in the domain of marketing. The man laughed and he said, what you are saying is very important. But you see, we have the knowledge, we don't have the opportunity to exercise that knowledge. That is to say, preference is given to a lot of strangers in this country when it comes to the domain of business. I don't know why, but I think probably because the taxes they get from them probably is higher. But I believe that what is created by a Cameroonian is of Cameroon than what a stranger can create. I think if we encourage indigenous businesses to advance in this country and we don't go after the interest of what we are going to get, it's going to help us. There is something China is practicing called monopoly practice. That is to say, they don't go to the market to make money. They go to the market to buy the market share. China will sell this microphone to gain 50 francs from it. Check in Africa, 80%, especially in conductor, 80% of the goods we consume in Africa, from building materials to dresses to what we eat to what we wear to the kind of perfumes we spray, they are Chinese oriented. You realize that British market is broken in Africa, German market is broken in Africa, American market is broken in Africa, and then home-based products are broken in Africa because China has taken the market share. This is because we give preference to those who come from outside than the people who are in the country. This is, I grew up and I knew there was a place called Changmuliwe. I don't know if you understood Changmuliwe. It was a factory that fabricated rubber shoes. That company disappeared into thin air. That tells you the technology has been here since, and the technology will always be, but the opportunity and the environment has not given chance for home-based technocrats and engineers as well as intellectuals to express their capacity. I used to think in those when I was growing up that invention, Mr. Liu, was a white man's stuff. Until I carried out a survey and I realized that the cell phone that we are using initially was created by a black man. Samuel T. Sampson was the first person to create the cell phone. This cell phone we are using, all this you are hearing about iPhone, Motorola, Samsung, the initial creator of this cell phone was a black man. That is to tell you that creativity or invention has nothing to do with your skin color. The same way we see Chinese create, Indians create, Americans create, Europeans create, there are Cameroonians who can create. It will shock you that the roller coaster equally was created by a by a black man. Gravity Woods was the person that created the roller coaster. Even this baby roller that we are running with it in the street like that they carry little children on it, it's a black man that created it. The brush that we are using to brush our head is a fire extinguisher, was created by a black man. Now, how do you explain that we have black skin who are creative. They have the ability to invent. And then we look like creativity and invention happens to be a white man's stuff, because they have overshadowed our mentality to think. Now, if these black men are creating this thing, Cameroonians are black, Ghanaians are black, Kenyans are black, because opportunity has been given to them. The person that started Kentucky Fried Chicken is Colonel Sanders at the age of 65. He combined those spices and opened one of the biggest chicken mall in the world, business center. That's because the environment was comfortable. My wife read marketing in the university. I have been opportune to come in contact with marketers who are doctors and professors. If you hear them talk, give them the opportunity and the comfortable environment, we will have supermarkets in this nation bigger than Mahima, bigger than Supermarché, bigger than all the names we are seeing here. But how do you explain that in a country of ours, the strangers are the ones running the biggest supermarket and supermalls in the country? Okay. Because the environment is not comfortable.
Atemedwin says, good evening, Mr. Leo, watching from Kumba. Your program is very educative. Comfort Nyensi, good evening, Mr. Leo, watching from Mutengene. Interesting topic. Tef Civilin says, keep up the good work. You are the African Eye. Kel Cole, good evening, bro, and very nice theme of debate. Na Emelda watching from the Babesi. Arung Immaculate watching live from Douala. Good evening, Mr. Liam watching from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Kuma watching from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Liam watching live from Chang. Good evening, Mr. Leo watching live from Bamenda Up Station. Good evening to all of you watching us from Bamenda this evening. Good evening, Mr. Liam watching from Ngaoundere. Watching from Kumba, I'm watching from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Kum. We are watching from Bonaberi. We are sending special greetings to all of you who are watching us from Ngaoundere. Glad to know that many persons are watching from Ngaoundere. But I want Dr. Munang to come in to discuss about this world creation perspective by Africans who have received knowledge on wealth creation. I'm talking about economy. How do we explain that he says that the Lebanese and the rest who are thriving in Cameroon is because opportunities have been given them, and that Cameroonians who read marketing, economics, and the rest cannot create wealth because the opportunities are non-existent?
I think that was a very good point that Pastor Ambe brought up, because the reason why Africa is behind is because we have forgotten that what we are looking and searching for is actually just where we are.
Of course.
Wealth creation is no rocket science. It's about leveraging what you have and expanding it so that at least it can be in a finished form for you to fetch money. But it is also about looking for challenges to solve so that at least you can make money. Let me take the agro value chain. Our mothers produce enough food in Cameroon. But the amount of food that is wasted because they don't have storage systems, whether it is a solar fridge or a solar dryer to add value to it, it is the gap, because then the food gets wasted and they still end up not having food. If you intervene to add value, not learning a skill to develop a solar dryer or learning a skill to assemble a solar fridge, you will be closing a gap, because you will have a market for that mother to be able to access. Mother will then dry her vegetables, dry her tomatoes, dry her cassava, turn the cassava flour, and be able to fetch more money. Wealth creation is a chain reaction where everyone intervenes, where he or she have his or her expertise to then be able to solve a problem, put money in his or her pocket, and at the same time also put food on the table. Unless we start to understand that it is in simple things that we need to do, that we can then be able to move to higher levels, then we'll be missing the point. Because by crawling, we learn to stand. And there is an African proverb that says, we must learn to lift stones today before we can be able to lift mountains. And I think there is this attitude in the continent that we must rise tomorrow because the world is ending tomorrow. We must rise today because the world is ending tomorrow. No, it's a process. I started by saying that excellence is not an event, it's a habit. It is through overcoming adversity, which is where we have to endure some pain before we can ever have gain. Because no pain, no pain. We want to sit and think that others will not come and take away what we are not doing. They're joking. If you do not solve your problem, that will become an opportunity for someone else. I want to end by saying this. Opportunities are not given anywhere in the world. Started in the Western world, worked there. I'm now working back in the African continent. The fact that we see the Western world, things look as if they are just very easily moving. There are also people there who are struggling to get opportunities. But the difference is the systems work where everybody works. If you go against this, you are going to be punished. Why am I bringing this up? If opportunities are given to people who are not willing to seize them, nothing will change. And this is a very difficult discussion sometimes, because when we say it, it's because we are here and there. That's why we are saying it. Even if you are promoted today and you do not deliver with expectation, you're going to lose wherever you are. And I always say that it's very easy to climb, but it's very difficult to stay at the top. If you are not dedicated, if you are not focused, if you do not want to endure short-term pain for long-term gain. And therefore, when it comes to wealth creation, it is up to Cameroonians and Africans to start to learn a skill. So it boils down to these two words, skills retooling. Whether we study to be a teacher, learn how to be able to add value to an agricultural product that you are interested in. It's about passion, to follow your passion. Being a teacher or being a technologist, being an entrepreneur does not stop you from actually focusing on a problem that you can be able to give your best. It's difficult to make impact in something when there is no passion. If you have passion for anything or without money, and I call passion the biggest currency of now. Money.
I dropped that message for a reason.
Do not have passion, they will squander the money and no development will happen. But give ideas. A passionate young person, so we use those ideas to innovate and come up with solutions that will make him or her a billionaire. This is the kind of articulation that I think really needs to be driven every person's mind, young or old, young at heart, country and in the continent. Call these the biggest teachers that Africa needs today, which is inspiration. So, I think Africans to usher themselves to the solution space. And here's the last aspect here, which is one that I think we have discussed: intellectualism, wealth creation, without also mentioning. A degree is not a license to a job. Because the jobs that are out there are not necessarily jobs in which we were trained, especially with our educational curriculum system to address. Remember, education in Africa is matched with the challenges that the continent faces today. Therefore, if you want to get into agriculture, for example, you have to start to learn that skill on your own. If you want to get into turning waste into apparel, into shoes, and into plastic bags, you have to learn that skill on your own. This means? It means that with that extra ingenuity, what I call internal rejuvenation, we need to rejuvenate and have to do something that I'm passionate about and start to learn that skill. But unless we do that and think that it's only when we're going to have a white-collar job that we can be able to be better, no, that is not going to work. Even me today, I'm an environmental scientist, but my passion in mentoring and engaging with young people. It is true that at least you bring the skills from the work that you are doing, you notice that you're actually driving a different dimension that is making him. If each and every one of us can do that, we'll be able to contribute to transformational development for the country. That aspect of fearing failure is something that every person, young or old, should know, that it is in failure that we learn. Not today, even if you don't have money. Fail, you learn from failure. Because when you fail forward, you grow from it and you become stronger and better. We're afraid of failure because we constrain ourselves to what society will think about us if we fail. And you have experience, but experience is not taught in the classroom. It's when you try and voluntarily volunteer yourself to do something, because it is part of gaining skills from volunteering that you can then be able to be marketable in creating opportunities for your own self. And that's how world can be created. Over.
Waters watching from Suza. Mr. Liu, your program is always interesting. Keep on building this, our nation. God will bless you and everyone there in the studio. Mr. Liu, please extend my greetings to Apostle. I love the way he talks. Good evening, Mr. Liu. George writing from Boya. Simple logic. The government should just give 60% preference to private sector because we have brilliant creative people in this country. Good evening. Dwason, I'm watching from Garwa. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The panelists are on board. Greed is the main factor. The government has to make a level ground for all, not mining where you come from. The issue of God, our Father in Cameroon, has made many intelligent people to leave the country. Taxes too is one of the reasons why people can open companies, can't open companies. It's anti-Lucy. Right in there. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The intellectuals need to employ Cameroonians based on vocation and merits. A fish in water and a monkey in the tree shall help Cameroon grow. Mukong Wilson, writing from Marwa. My best private university in Cameroon is the Catholic University in Bafoussam. Okay, good evening, sir, and everyone in the studio. We have great intellectuals in Cameroon who want to and are willing to contribute to the growth of the country, but public policy and politics is not helping them in any way to do so. For things to work out where we need to review the government policy and put in place a mechanism that can help out. Okay, Can Elvis Mulu writing from Bonaberry. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Thanks and keep us with the good work. I agree with Apostle. Foreigners in Cameroon are better place and have more opportunities than Cameroonians. So it's difficult for all of us to help grow our country. Fine Stephen watching from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm from Christian in Yaoundé. Your program is educative. Good evening, Mr. Liu and guest in the studio. This program is very enriching. Fanui watching from Kumba. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Godlove for watching from Lu. Mr. Liu, please, I love your program. Keep up seeing lasting solutions to this Anglophone problem due to your dynamism and presentation of panelists. This is Jude from Bat writing from Pendamboko. Good evening, Mr. Liu and co. In the studio. African politics is just to try by error. Politics, the politicians don't really know the politics. Okay. This one says my best university is Bamenda University. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Carl Nziki Ivo. Wishing you, okay, you mean watching you from Guinea Equatorial, the African Eye. Okay, thank you very much. How do we get Cameroonians full benefits from their intellectuals, Dr. Michael?
Is that we need to sensitize and educate, like Albert Einstein said, that intellectual growth should start from birth and cease only at death. Mm-hmm. That is the spirit we have to inculcate in people. And you know, intellectuality is about daring on the ground where no one is willing to dare. So we need to be able to inculcate this in Cameroonians and let Cameroonians know that you are an intellectual because you have done something that is more than what another person has done. For example, those who have done research at the PhD level know that, even at master's level, they know that once you do a conclusion of your thesis, it is the beginning of another question. It is the beginning of another question that is for further research. Mm-hmm. And that is why we say that you must be able to find a problem that you are going to solve. You don't solve a problem that someone else has already solved. That is how it is with intelligentsia. That you seek to solve a problem that no one has solved. And I think Apostle Ambe said it, that we should be able to do what is only what you think that we have the need for that will give you the push to go further to do. Like, for example, in Africa, we produce what we don't consume. It will never give you the push to continue to produce, because what you produce is somebody else who determines how the price is and when it is going to be exported and when it is going to be bought. But if you produce something that the next neighbor has use for, and then the next neighbor will pick it up like granite, like cake, I think that you are going to have that courage to produce. Yeah. The world is changing today because of the aspiration of the youth. We started with emails, we went to Yahoo, we went to Facebook, now we have WhatsApp and all of this. It is because of the aspiration, you know, the zeal, the zest of the youth. They are hungry to have new things come into the world that will facilitate the functioning and the working of the world. And that is why they are applauded. And therefore, it beats my imagination that most people only want to get into civil service. And I've come to understand that the civil service is a genuine, gives a genuine license to state registered thieves. That is what the civil service is giving us. It gives a genuine license to them to state registered thieves, because you want to just go and sit there, you are resting. You just want to sleep there, and then your money is coming per month. If you like, you go there, you abandon the thing and you go abroad. Somebody else is taking your salary. That is what I call them. Those are people who get in to be registered as state registered thieves. So I think if you really want to serve your community, you should look for what your community needs. You have to identify the needs in your community. Don't be like those bar owners in Cameroon, where there is a bar here and then next 5 minutes or 10 minutes another bar. This is unproductive. In invention, in creating, you look for what the people want the most. Where there is an eager desire, where there is an eager desire for people, for what people want, and then you step into. As I said again, it is about daring into where no one wants to dare. And that is what it is about intellectuality and about intelligentsia. That you don't have to repeat what other people do. That will be plagiarism. You don't plagiarize in intelligence. That's why when you write the project or you do your research and then you present, you want to defend, they have to study to see whether you are taken by the knowledge of another person to come and defend. You have to be able to identify a problem that you are solving. This is what we call intellectualism. This is what we call intelligentsia. And this is what we are encouraging. That we have to dare, we have to dare, we have to get into to that start. We have to get to that stadium and see what is new that we can bring to our community, because it is only in doing that you are celebrated. This is what we call innovations. This is what we call creation. It is not what we call rebrandishing. We don't want rebrandishing because we are good at rebrandishing. Let us create, let us innovate. Let us bring something new to the society, to the community, answer to the needs of the community. You have had, a bad road, or you have had gutters or drainage that is not working. What new can you bring? What system can you bring new that will make this community better than the other community? I think that this is what we want about intellectual growth, and that is why we need to keep on learning. And that's what Ambe said it rightly. Intellectual growth starts at birth and it only ends when you die. It means that what? Even when you invent, you don't sleep on your laurel and get satisfied that I have already given my best to the society. You have to keep on working until you die. It is all about that. That's why we celebrate those who have left their indelible marks on in the society, and that is why the people are celebrated today. And some other writers said it: when you die and people keep talking about you positively, that is when you transition very easily to the other world. But when you die and people come and say, look at this useless man, was only a drunk, what is it that you brought to the society? Then your spirit keeps on hovering and getting around in society. Well, I'm not in the metaphysical way to say that Apostle Ambe can better educate us on that. So that is why you have to get something better in the society. Look at this world and ask yourself, how can I make this world different from the way it is doing? And that is what invention is all about. What after WhatsApp? What is going to come up? How many other applications are coming up? Or this communication. So I heard someone was talking about another way of communication that is coming very soon. That we will not even need to use telephones. I feel that one you will have to inscribe. That one will be injected into. I don't know how it's going to work. But that is how intelligentsia is all about. Bringing something new that no one has brought into the society, and making the world a better place.
Apostle Ambe, just 1 minute to end the program for tonight. What our intelligentsia should be doing despite the difficult terrain in which they find themselves.
Mr. Leo, I think our intelligentsia should study what we have as problems here than what we are given in books. Most of the books we read do not solve our problems. Most of the books we read are solutions to other countries' problems. Like I said here once, somebody who studied geography is taught how to do fishing in Japan. I've not seen fishing in the Buncha. I've not seen fishing in Limbe. I've seen lumbering in Sweden. I've not seen lumbering in Ekondo Titi. I've not seen lumbering in Belabu. We have been taught about the pampas of Argentina. We have been taught about the shifting cultivation in the Ganges Valley of India. I think that we have to start studying what is wrong with us here. Because it's so amazing to realize that we are producing cocoa, but we are the least consumers of cocoa. Meanwhile, we produce cassava the least, and we are the highest consumers of cassava. So I think we should be studying what we need in this society than studying what was offered to us. I think what is wrong with our intelligentsia is because they study what is not solution to their community. So they can't solve the problem with another people's idea. The sicknesses in Asia are not the sicknesses in Africa. That's why the challenges in Asia are not the challenges here in Africa. So I think we should get back to a place of making our own intelligentsia study the practical problems that are wrong with our society so they can provide solutions to those problems. They should not be studying things that are happening in other countries to solve problems in this country. Knowledge can be drawn from everywhere, but every society has its peculiar challenges and must be confronted straightforward. Okay. I don't think that we should be twisting things and going up and coming down. We should study what is wrong here. To me, clear your cocoa farms down and turn them to cassava farms. Okay.
Thank you very much, Apostle Ambe. Dr. Munang, one last word, please. Just 1 minute.
It's, thanks to the panelists, Apostle Ambe and Dr. Ndimacho. There is profound power in a narrative, and the narrative that we can be able to achieve if we apply short-term pain for long-term gain is what we need to keep pushing, because the world in which we are in today is so complex and competitive. It's not because in Africa are competing with our 1.4 billion Africans, because with the Africa continental free trade in Cameroon will be taken, the people from Sierra Leone, from Togo, from Gabon, etc. So we must then be able to revamp and retool our skills to be relevant to fit into the space in which we are in now for the 21st century. Can only come when we start to do that, which is useful to put money in our pockets. And the last is, we are too comfortable in the continent. I think the comfort is, that's why we complain most of the time. And when we complain the next day. We need to reimagine the kind of society we need and start to play our part to create that society. It should be the rule of everyone. And if everyone does that, he or she will be more than intelligence. So that's what we need to be able to turn challenges to opportunities. Thank you.
Okay, we want to thank you, Dr. Ndimacho, for coming.
Thanks so much, Mr. Leo. And just to encourage each and every one of us, I usually say, if you keep your frontage clean, if you identify that drainage in front of your house, in your quarter is not okay, and you get a solution to it, you are an intellectual. An intellectual is also about service. You cannot claim to be an intellectual when you cannot even serve your immediate community, when you cannot serve your household. I encourage Cameroonians to keep hopeful and to keep serviceable and keep successful as they are successful.
Thank you too for coming, Apostle.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. It's always a joy and a privilege to help educate our community. Thank you very much.
Doctor, thank you for coming today. Apparently, Doctor is gone. We want to thank you, Dr. Munang, for participating in today's edition of the program, and to the producers, Desmond and Eli, for all they have been doing. Tabi Bryant, we are also very grateful for the work you are doing out here to supervise our endeavors. We thank you all for watching. Stay blessed.